let me ask you, what is the difference between these two sentences? We all have our crosses to bear. Pick up your cross and follow Christ. Now, if you look, the sentences are similar, but obviously they're not identical. But what is the basic difference between the concept? If you haven't figured it out, it's simple. One is assuming a burden that is beyond our ability to prevent, and the other is assuming a burden that we are actively choosing to assume. That is the difference between the two sentences. And Jesus calls us to do the latter. Pick up your cross and follow him. As a matter of fact, the way he actually says it is he calls us, if we choose to be his disciples, then we will do two things. We will engage in self-denial, and we will pick up our cross and follow him. Actually, among other things. Now, you understand that sometimes people use that term to describe the way to go to heaven, but that's not what he says. See, the implication is we do that to go to heaven, the implication is there's a route to heaven and that's the way to go. I understand that. But Jesus is calling us to do something different because he says we are his disciples. A disciple is someone who is actively engaged in the mission of his teacher. So he's not just calling us to follow a route to heaven, he's calling us to engage in his mission, which is the salvation of souls. So we are asked to be part of his mission, and we do that by picking up our cross and following him, by engaging in acts of self-denial. That is how we engage in his mission and be part of his mission. Now, how do we understand this? Well, let's begin here. Pope Benedict XVI in Deus Caritas Est explains that we are united in two parts. We have two parts to ourselves that are united, a spiritual part and a physical part. We have to understand that the world only understands the physical part for the most part. So we have a spiritual part and a physical part. If we only understand ourselves in a physical way, then everything we do will be driven by the physical and will be there to gratify and support the physical. And when something goes wrong, whether it's minor or tragic, because we're only living on a physical level, we have no other recourse to deal with that issue besides within the physical realm. But Pope Benedict explains that we have a spiritual part to us and a physical. And the way we're called to live is to let the spiritual be fed and let that guide the physical. So that's a whole different way of looking at things. And when things go wrong, we look at them from a spiritual level, and that will affect the physical. And so we can deal with difficulties in a different way than people who live just physically. So let's look at how this works, and let's have an understanding. I'm assuming that you are receiving communion this Sunday, and hopefully, if you aren't ready to receive, that you go to confession first. But we'll assume that you're going to receive communion worthily. Now, you have to understand that is such a profound act that you're going to do something that even angels do not do. Angels don't receive communion. They can't receive communion. And so angels look at us with awe as we receive the body and blood of Christ. It is that profound an act. Now, when you receive the body and blood of Christ, if you understood the profound depths of what you were receiving, you would probably be paralyzed in the same awe with which the angels are just fascinated, are just for themselves in adoration. You would probably be paralyzed in this tremendous awe if you understood fully what it is you're receiving. And that may be one of the reasons why we don't have a full view of what we're receiving, because it would just paralyze us or overpower us. So, when we look at it from that perspective, then we understand that it's a powerful thing that we do. And that powerful thing, receiving of the Eucharist, is something that not only touches us spiritually, but affects the way we live physically, because if we truly understand what we are doing, then when we walk through the world and the rest of the week, then we understand that we have engaged in something that is intimately profound, and that should affect everything we do for the rest of the week. I mean, it shouldn't paralyze us, but it should let us realize that we have this powerful dignity that the Lord has given us, and that we're called to live that dignity because it is so powerful what we have received. Now, you're going to encounter many people in the week who are also given that dignity, but either through ignorance or for personal choice decide not to participate in it. We are called to live that dignity in such a profound way that it affects the way we live our life. So everything we do is called to be different than everything that those who are living the world engage in. Do you understand that? That's why our morality is different. That's why our actions are different. That's the way we're called to live in a different way, because we have been touched by the profound sacrament, which is the manifestation of the presence of Christ within us. And others don't appreciate that, and our way of living our life is there to help others to come to appreciate fully what it is that the Lord has invited them to experience. So you can see that by doing that, we make that choice to live our life so differently that we become part of the mission of Christ's salvation. And that's what our call is. So we're called not to just go through life. We're called not to just expect to live our life so we can get into heaven. We're called to be active members of the mission of Christ's call to salvation. That means we are called to be active members of that mission itself. And that's why we're called to pick up our cross and follow him. From Quincy, Massachusetts, in New England, which is the northeastern part of the United States, God bless you.